We've created a new service account for our application, created a new tenant and namespace, provided our service account produce and consume permissions on that namespace, and created our first partition topic. And in fact, here in StreamNative UI, I've also created a second topic called myTopic2 because we're going to be publishing Kafka messages to this topic. We have a separate video on how to publish the Pulsar Java Client messages. So here at the top of the page, I've already selected my tenant, my namespace. So let's click on Kafka Clients here on the left pane. Under Code Libraries, I'm going to keep Java selected, and then clicking Next, I'm going to select my service account that I'm going to use to produce the Kafka messages. And then under Authentication Type, we can use either OAuth 2 or an API key for connecting with Kafka to our cluster. If you haven't already downloaded the OAuth 2 key for your service account, you can download that now. I've already downloaded it when I created the service account. And then you can also create a new API key here. Selecting these will also change the code that's presented to you later with the producer and consumer code, because the code is going to be different for the two. If you selected the API key, it will auto-populate the code with the newly created API key. Under service endpoint, some clusters have multiple endpoints. Ours has one, as yours most likely will as well, with a new cluster. So I'm just going to leave that as default. If you want to use schema registry, you can enable this here. That will add additional items into your producer and consumer code, referencing the schema registry. And you'll also need to make sure that you have produce permissions on this particular topic here in the public Kafka schema registry tenant and namespace. I'm going to leave that disabled for now. And then here we have some dependencies for the Kafka client and the OAuth 2 client. So if you didn't select OAuth 2 up here, you will not need to include this dependency here for the Pulsar handlers. And then under produce and consumer code, because we selected my tenant and my namespace at the top, those are going to be pre-populated into your code, for example here. And I'm going to also select my topic 2 in this case, and you'll see that it pre-populates. The code is pre-populated with our server URL, our audience, as well as here you can see OAuth 2 endpoint. The consumer will also need a subscription. That would be a consumer group in Kafka terms. You could either select one here in the subscriptions dropdown or create one, or just copy that code out and fill this in manually when you get over to IntelliJ. We're going to go ahead and copy out that producer code, and we'll also show where in the POM file you would add the dependencies. Here over in IntelliJ, I'm going to create a new project called Kafka Producer using Maven. Let me go ahead and click Create on that. Here in Dependencies, I've added the two dependencies for the Kafka client and our OAuth 2 client. And here in org.example, I'll create a new Java class, and we're going to call that SN Cloud OAuth 2 Producer, as it is in the code in the StreamNative UI. We go ahead and copy that code in from StreamNative UI, and I do need to also right-click on the POM file here, go to Maven, reload project, and then all of these red ones should turn back to white. I need to make sure to include my key file path. For this Kafka example, I've placed my OAuth 2 key into my project's resources folder, and then I'm going to reference it all the way from the users folder, the username desktop, and the folder path where my project lives, all the way to this folder. A little bit further down in the code, you will see this get concatenated with file : //. Here I've already tested it out, but let's go ahead and execute the producer again to publish another message. Kafka consumer groups work differently than Pulsar subscriptions when it comes to making sure messages aren't deleted. For Pulsar subscriptions, the default behavior is all messages inside a subscription that aren't acknowledged won't be deleted. This isn't the case for Kafka consumer groups. Even if a topic has a Kafka consumer group with messages that haven't been acknowledged, they are still by default eligible for deletion. For this reason, it is highly recommended to configure a message retention policy on the namespace. This will then be applied to all topics in that namespace. I've linked a video in the description with more details on message retention with Kafka consumer groups.